Gossip in Manhattan travels faster than a speeding bullet, especially when blood money and butter are involved. Nobody believed a size 22 baker with flour in her hair could capture the city's most feared syndicate leader. They laughed, they pointed, and they mocked her weight until he walked in. Jamie Gallagher did not fit the mold of a Tribeca elite. In a neighborhood where women survived on green juice, Pilates, and whispered prescriptions for Ozempic Jamil, known to everyone as Penny, was an unapologetic anomaly. She was fat. Not curvy, not thick, but genuinely undeniably fat. She carried her 250 pounds with a quiet grace, her soft belly pressing against the ties of her linen aprons, her thick thighs chafing after 14-hour shifts, and her round face permanently flushed from the heat of the industrial ovens. Penny owned Sweetbriar Confections, a high-end bakery tucked away on a cobblestone street that had almost accidentally become the most exclusive dessert spot in New York City. Her croissants rivaled those at Balthazar, and she had recently catered a private charity gala for the Rockefeller Foundation. But despite her undeniable culinary genius to the old money socialites and the new money influencers who frequented her shop, Penny was just the chubby help. Her shop was a sanctuary of French vanilla burnt sugar and roasting espresso. It was also a shark tank. Every Tuesday morning at exactly 10 o'clock, Madison Hayes and Casey Kensington pushed through the heavy glass doors. Madison was the heiress to Hayes Equity, a venture capital firm with billions in assets. Casey was a fashion PR executive who practically lived at Bergdorf Goodman. Both were a size 0, perfectly manicured and exceptionally cruel. "Good morning, Penny," Madison drawled, adjusting a Birkin bag on her sharp shoulder. Her eyes lazily raked up and down Penny's flour-dusted form, lingering intentionally on her heavy hips and the double chin that appeared when Penny looked down at the pastry case. "Did you try the new eclairs yourself? You're looking a little extra festive today." Casey snickered, picking up a silver tong to poke at a delicate raspberry tart. "Oh, Maddie, leave her alone. Somebody has to do quality control. Though looking at the sheer volume of her, I'd say she's controlling the quality of the entire borough." Penny kept her expression neutral, sliding a white pastry box across the marble counter. She was used to it. The microaggressions, the passive-aggressive health advice, the fake concern about her blood pressure. Growing up fat meant developing skin as thick as fondant. "That will be $45, Madison. Cash or card?" "Card," Madison snapped, tossing a sleek black Amex onto the counter. "You know, Penny, my personal trainer at Equinox, is doing a special right now. I could give you his number. It's genuinely concerning seeing you waddle behind that counter. I mean, how do you even find clothes? Does Lane Bryant even make chef coats?" Penny took a deep breath, swiping the card. "I get them custom-made, Madison. Have a wonderful day." As the two women strutted out, leaving behind a cloud of expensive Chanel perfume, Penny exhaled a shaky breath, her shoulders slumping. No matter how much she embraced her body, the venom still stung. She loved her soft curves. She loved the way her body felt warm and comforting, but the relentless mocking chipped away at her armor. What Madison Casey and the rest of New York high society didn't know, however, was that Penny had a secret. A massive, dangerous, multi-million-dollar secret. His name was Dominic Russo. To the public, Dominic was an elusive real estate magnate and shipping CEO. To the FBI, he was the ruthless head of the Russo crime family, controlling the Eastern Seaboard's underground casinos and import-export docks. He was a man made of sharp angles, tailored Italian suits, and a reputation so violent that grown men stuttered in his presence. And he was desperately, madly, obsessively in love with the chubby baker from Tribeca. They had met 8 months ago on a freezing Tuesday night. Dominic bleeding from a superficial but messy grazing bullet wound after a deal gone wrong had slipped through the back alley door of Sweetbriar Confections to evade a trailing car. Penny had been there, pulling a midnight shift to finish a wedding cake. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't called the police. She had calmly locked the door, handed him a clean kitchen towel for his side, and poured him a cup of black coffee. Dominic had expected fear, disgust, or at least a barrage of questions. Instead, he found peace. He found a woman whose soft, full figure and warm brown eyes grounded him. He began visiting her in secret. Late at night, the feared Mafia Boss would sit in the back of the bakery, eating fresh cinnamon rolls and watching his beautiful fat baker work her magic. He loved her appetite, he loved her softness, and he fiercely guarded her. 6 weeks ago, in a completely private ceremony at a secluded estate in the Hamptons, Dominic had slipped a massive, flawless emerald-cut diamond ring onto Penny's finger. She kept it hidden on a chain under her shirt while she worked. They were waiting for the right moment to go public once Dominic concluded a volatile merger with a rival syndicate. Penny was Mrs. Dominic Rousseau, but to the mean girls of Manhattan, she was still just a punching bag, and they were about to push their luck too far. A week later, the bells above the bakery door chimed furiously. Penny was in the middle of piping delicate buttercream roses when the shop was suddenly invaded by a boisterous crowd. It was Madison Hayes, flanked by Casey, and 3 other women carrying shopping bags from high-end Fifth Avenue boutiques. "Penny!" Madison clapped her hands together, the sound sharp and echoing in the cozy space. "I need your full attention. Drop the frosting." Penny wiped her hands on her apron, feeling the heavy ring resting against her collarbone beneath her shirt. "What can I do for you, Madison?" "I am getting married," Madison announced smugly, thrusting her left hand forward to display a flashy, gaudy diamond. "And I need the most spectacular, low-carb, gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free cake you can miraculously construct. We are having a massive engagement party at the Plaza Hotel this Friday. 400 guests." Penny blinked. "Madison Friday is in 3 days. I can't design, bake, and deliver a custom cake for 400 people on that timeline. I'm entirely booked." Madison's smile dropped, her eyes turning into cold slits. "Excuse me, I don't think you understand. I am paying you. Handsomely. And frankly, considering you look like you eat half your inventory before the sun comes up, I'd think you'd welcome the extra cash to, I don't know, afford a gastric bypass." The bakery went dead silent. A few regular customers sitting at the corner tables stopped talking, turning to watch the scene. Penny felt the blood rush to her cheeks, a hot wave of humiliation and anger washing over her. "My weight has nothing to do with my schedule," Penny said, her voice trembling slightly despite her best efforts to keep it steady. "I cannot do the cake, Madison. Please leave." "You arrogant fat cow," Casey chimed in, stepping forward. "Do you know who Madison's fiancé is? He's powerful. He's dangerous. He runs half the development projects in Queens. You're just a glorified lunch lady. You don't say no to us." Right on cue, the glass door swung open again. A man walked in, dressed in an expensive but slightly flashy suit. He had slicked back hair and an arrogant swagger. "Babe, what's the hold-up?" the man asked, wrapping an arm around Madison's waist. "Liam," Madison pouted, leaning into him. "This chubby little baker is refusing to make our engagement cake. She's being incredibly disrespectful." Penny recognized Liam instantly. She had never spoken to him, but she had seen his face. Dominic had shown her a dossier of his lower-level lieutenants, the ambitious, slightly reckless men who ran the street-level enforcements and debt collections. Liam was one of Dominic's foot soldiers. He was small-time, but in the civilian world he played the part of a big-shot gangster to impress trust fund girls like Madison. Liam sneered, letting go of Madison and walking right up to the pastry counter, leaning over it to intimidate Penny. "Listen to me, sweetheart," Liam said, his voice dropping into a faux-threatening whisper. "You're going to bake the cake, and you're going to do it for half price as an apology to my fiancé. If you don't, I promise you this little sugar shop of yours is going to have a very bad accident with a grease fire. Do you understand who you're dealing with?" Penny stood her ground, though her heart was hammering against her ribs. She wasn't scared of Liam. She knew exactly who he was. And more importantly, she knew exactly who she was. But the public humiliation, the vitriol about her body, the sheer entitlement, it was suffocating. "I said no," Penny replied, her voice firm. Liam's face twisted in rage. He reached across the counter, aggressively grabbing a massive 3-tiered display cake that had taken Penny 6 hours to decorate, and shoved it hard. The cake tumbled off the marble, crashing onto the immaculate tile floor in a tragic, sickening splat of ruined icing and shattered cake board. Madison and Casey erupted into malicious laughter. "Oops," Liam smirked. "Looks like you've got some cleaning up to do, Porky. Now about our order." Before Liam could finish his sentence, the atmosphere in the bakery shifted. It wasn't a subtle change. The air seemed to instantly freeze, the ambient chatter from the street outside completely muffled. 3 massive black-suited men stepped through the front door, silently locking it behind them and flipping the open sign to closed. They didn't say a word. They merely stood shoulder to shoulder, blocking the exit, their hands resting ominously inside their suit jackets. Madison's laughter died in her throat. Casey took a step back, suddenly looking very small. Liam turned around, his arrogant smirk faltering as he took in the sheer size of the security detail. Then the crowd parted. Dominic Russo walked in. He wore a bespoke charcoal suit that clung perfectly to his broad shoulders, a black silk shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His dark eyes, usually cold and calculating, were currently ablaze with a terrifying lethal fury. He exuded an aura of absolute power and imminent violence. Liam's face drained of all color. He looked as though he had just seen a ghost. He instantly dropped his hands to his sides, his knees actually buckling slightly. Mr. Russo." Liam stammered, his voice cracking like a terrified child. I didn't know you frequented this side of town, boss. We were just leaving." Dominic didn't even look at Liam. He didn't look at Madison, who was clutching her Birkin bag to her chest like a shield, or Casey, who was trembling. Dominic's eyes were fixed solely on Penny. He took in her flushed face, the unshed tears of frustration in her eyes, and the ruined masterpiece of a cake on the floor. His jaw tightened, a dangerous muscle ticking in his cheek. He walked slowly past the terrified socialites, his expensive leather shoes crunching over the ruined fondant. He stepped around the counter, invading Penny's space, and did something that made every single person in the room stop breathing. Dominic raised his hands, gently cupping Penny's soft, round cheeks. He leaned down and kissed her forehead with a reverence that bordered on worship. He turned around, keeping one arm securely and possessively wrapped around Penny's thick waist, pulling her flush against his side. His dark, murderous gaze finally locked onto Liam and the trembling mean girls. Dominic said, his voice dangerously soft, barely above a whisper, yet it echoed like thunder in the silent bakery. Yes, boss," Liam squeaked, sweating profusely. "Care to explain to me?" Dominic murmured, his grip tightening protectively on Penny. "Why you are threatening my wife." Silence suffocated the room. Liam's face lost all its arrogant color, morphing into a sickly translucent shade of gray. The word wife hung in the sugar-scented air like a live grenade that had just had its pin pulled. Madison Hayes, still clutching her incredibly expensive Birkin bag, stared at Dominic Russo with wide, entirely uncomprehending eyes. Casey Kensington stopped breathing altogether, her manicured hands trembling visibly against her sides. Liam's knees literally gave out beneath him. He collapsed onto the pristine white tiles, landing directly in the smeared buttercream and crushed vanilla sponge of the destroyed masterpiece he had just shoved off the counter. He didn't even seem to notice the sticky pink frosting soaking into the fabric of his flashy trousers. "Wife?" Liam whispered the word, scraping out of his completely dry throat. "Boss, I swear on my mother's grave I had absolutely no idea. I thought she was just... I thought. You thought what, Liam?" Dominic's voice remained perfectly level, a terrifying and absolute contrast to the lethal, unyielding violence simmering in his dark eyes. He didn't shout. He didn't raise his voice. He spoke with the quiet, absolute authority of a man who could end a life with a single, untraceable phone call. "Did you think you could casually walk into my personal territory, openly threaten the woman who wears my ring, and mock the beautiful body that I completely worship? Did you honestly believe you were a powerful man, throwing your pathetic weight around a bakery to impress a spoiled, vicious socialite?" Dominic stepped closer to the trembling man on the floor, keeping his left arm wrapped securely and possessively around Penny's thick waist. He pulled her flush against his solid side, his large, warm hand resting affectionately on the soft curve of her hip. For Penny, the bitter humiliation of the past 20 minutes completely evaporated into thin air. Being a fat woman in a ruthless city that worshipped extreme thinness had always felt like wearing a permanent target on her back, but standing right here, enveloped in the protective, obsessive heat of Dominic Russo, she felt like an absolute, untouchable goddess. He didn't hide her. He didn't merely tolerate her size. He fiercely protected and utterly devoured it. "Mr. Russo, please," Liam begged, clasping his hands together in a pathetic display of submission, looking like a cornered rat. "I was just trying to get a cake for Madison. I didn't know this was your establishment. I didn't know she belonged to you. I'll pay for the damages. I'll clean the floors with my tongue if you want me to. Just please spare my life." Dominic let out a low, humorless chuckle that sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. He looked down at Liam as if he were examining a squashed cockroach on the bottom of his bespoke Italian leather shoe. "You do not address her as she," Dominic commanded, his voice dropping another octave, vibrating with raw menace. "You will address her as Mrs. Russo. And you do not belong in my city anymore, Liam. You play at being a gangster. You drop my name to terrify innocent civilians and inflate your pathetic ego. Real men, powerful men, do not terrorize women over baked goods. As of this exact second, you are entirely stripped of your collections route in Queens. You are stripped of your vehicle, your apartment, and your pathetic inflated title. If my men see your face within the 5 boroughs of New York City, by sunset tomorrow, they have strict orders to bury you beneath the concrete of the new Hudson Development Project. Do you understand me?" Liam sobbed a pathetic, broken sound that echoed loudly in the quiet bakery. "Yes, boss. Yes, I understand. Thank you, boss. Thank you for my life." "Now," Dominic said, his gaze shifting slowly, deliberately toward Madison and Casey. The 2 mean girls instantly shrank back, terrified of the man standing before them. "Clean up my wife's floor. Use your bare hands. And when it is spotless, you will crawl out of my bakery and never return." Liam scrambled frantically on his hands and knees, scooping up handfuls of ruined cake and mashed fondant, shoving the mess into a nearby trash can, tears streaming down his face. Madison watched her supposed mob boss fiancé, crying on the floor, covered in pink icing, completely stripped of all his power and money in less than 60 seconds. The illusion was entirely shattered. "Excuse me." Madison suddenly spoke up, her voice high-pitched and defensive, completely misreading the dangerous situation. "You cannot possibly do this. My family is extremely powerful. I am Madison Hayes. We are practically royalty in this city. You can't just ruin my engagement over a stupid fat." Before Madison could finish the vile sentence, Dominic's right hand moved with lightning speed. He didn't strike her. He merely slammed his open palm flat against the marble countertop, with a deafening crack that sounded exactly like a gunshot. Madison shrieked, jumping backward, her face draining of all color. "Madison Hayes." Dominic mused, his dark eyes narrowing as a predatory, cruel smile spread across his handsome face. "Daughter of Harrison Hayes, CEO of Hayes Equity. Tell me, Madison, does your arrogant, socially climbing father ever discuss his private financial ledgers with you over your low-carb green juice brunches?" Madison blinked, utterly confused and terrified by the sudden shift in conversation. What are you talking about?" "I am talking about the very real fact that Hayes Equity is completely drowning in hidden debt," Dominic explained, smoothly, leaning casually against the counter, though his grip on Penny remained ironclad. "Your father made several incredibly poor investments in overseas shipping channels 2 years ago. He was on the verge of total bankruptcy. Traditional banks wouldn't even look at him. So he came begging to a private holding firm for a high-interest, incredibly risky bailout loan. A staggering $50 million loan, to be exact." Dominic paused, letting the heavy, devastating numbers sink into Madison's panicked mind. He smiled again, showing straight white teeth. "I am the sole proprietor of that private holding firm. Madison," Dominic whispered, dropping the ultimate bomb. "Your entire glamorous life, your penthouse, your designer bags, your stupid engagement party at the Plaza Hotel is funded entirely by my money. I own your father, which means, as of this beautiful Tuesday morning, I own you." The complete and utter destruction of Madison Hayes did not happen overnight. It happened over the course of 3 brutal, systematically devastating days. It was a masterclass in hard karma and high-stakes revenge, executed flawlessly by a man who controlled the underworld with an iron fist and loved his chubby baker with a terrifying devotion. Dominic Russo did exactly what he promised. He made a single encrypted phone call to his financial lieutenants. Within 24 hours, the massive loans artificially propping up Hayes Equity were abruptly and aggressively called in. Harrison Hayes, completely unable to produce $50 million in liquid cash, was immediately forced to declare emergency bankruptcy. The fallout was spectacular, public, and relentlessly covered by the New York Post and Page 6. The Hayes family assets were immediately frozen. The luxurious Park Avenue penthouse was seized by the bank. Madison's exclusive, incredibly expensive memberships to the city's elite country clubs were instantly revoked. The lavish engagement party at the Plaza Hotel, meant to be the social event of the entire season, was unceremoniously cancelled due to complete lack of payment. To make matters infinitely worse for the former mean girl, her fiancé was nowhere to be found. Liam, terrified of Dominic's lethal promise, had fled New York City in the dead of night with nothing but a duffel bag and a few $100, leaving Madison completely abandoned, entirely broke, and publicly humiliated. She had mocked a woman's size and completely lost her entire empire in return. It was a brutal, real-life fairy tale twist that nobody in high society saw coming. Meanwhile, inside the warm, completely protected walls of Sweetbriar Confections, Penny's life was transforming into something out of a breathtaking cinematic dream. With the violent merger with the rival syndicate successfully concluded and Liam's foolish disruption handled, Dominic decided it was finally time to step out of the shadows. He completely refused to hide his beautiful wife any longer. He wanted the entire world, and especially the snobby elites of Manhattan, to see exactly who held the heart of the city's most dangerous man. They planned a massive, incredibly lavish public wedding to legitimize their private Hamptons ceremony. The venue was an ancient, stunningly restored cathedral in Brooklyn, followed by a reception at a privately rented, entirely exclusive estate overlooking the water. The guest list was a fascinating, dangerous mix of high-ranking syndicate bosses, powerful local politicians, and Penny's loyal bakery staff. Even famous culinary figures like Eric Ripert sent private congratulations, recognizing Penny's incredible talent. Penny had spent her entire life hiding her large body behind baggy aprons and oversized sweaters, entirely convinced by society that a fat woman didn't deserve a fairy tale ending. Dominic completely shattered that toxic belief. He hired the legendary designer Christian Siriano, a man famous in real life for championing body diversity and dressing women of all sizes, to design Penny's custom wedding gown. The dress was an absolute, undisputed masterpiece. It was crafted from heavy, luxurious ivory Duchess satin, featuring a structured, meticulously boned corset that perfectly accentuated Penny's large, full breasts and completely hugged her thick waist. The skirt flared out dramatically into a massive, sweeping train embroidered with delicate, sparkling crystals that caught the light with every single step. She didn't wear shapewear to hide her beautiful stomach. The dress was deliberately constructed to celebrate every single soft, luscious curve she possessed. When Penny finally walked down the long, candlelit aisle, clutching a massive bouquet of deep red roses, the entire cathedral fell completely silent. She was a vision of absolute, unapologetic power and striking beauty. She was a 250-pound queen, walking toward her dangerous, fiercely devoted king. Dominic stood at the altar looking devastatingly handsome in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. When he saw Penny, his dark, normally stoic eyes actually filled with tears. He completely ignored the traditional protocols, stepping down from the altar to meet her halfway. He took her soft, plump hands in his, kissing her knuckles reverently in front of hundreds of the most dangerous men on the eastern seaboard. "You are the most breathtaking, perfect creature God ever created," Dominic whispered fiercely against her ear as he pulled her into his arms, completely ignoring the priest for a moment. "You are my entire world, Jamie." The reception that followed was a legendary event that rivaled the old stories of real-life mafia royalty, feeling like something straight out of a classic John Gotti or Carmine Persico historical documentary, but deeply infused with genuine, profound romance. There were mountains of incredible food, endless rivers of expensive vintage champagne, and a live orchestra playing beautifully into the early hours of the morning. But the absolute highlight of the entire evening was the wedding cake. Penny, entirely refusing to let anyone else handle the most important dessert of her life, had spent 3 straight days constructing it, with Dominic proudly watching her every single move. It was a massive, towering 7-tier masterpiece of dark chocolate truffle and fresh raspberry preserves, covered entirely in flawless, smooth black fondant, and decorated with hundreds of delicate hand-spun sugar roses that looked exactly like real flowers. When the time came to cut the cake, Dominic completely wrapped his arms around Penny from behind his large hands, resting lovingly over hers as they sliced through the thick, decadent layers together. The crowd erupted into massive, deafening cheers. In a corner of the city, sitting in a tiny, cramped, deeply affordable studio apartment, she was now forced to rent Madison Hayes angrily scrolled through her cracked smartphone. She aggressively watched the viral social media clips of the massive Russo wedding, staring with bitter, resentful tears at the glorious, radiant, incredibly fat baker, completely covered in diamonds, being worshipped by a billionaire king. Penny Gallagher had never needed to change her body, shrink her size, or apologize for taking up space in the world. She had simply stayed true to her wonderfully sweet self, standing her ground against the cruelest bullies, and in the end, she secured the bakery of her dreams, ultimate brutal justice, and a mafia boss who would happily burn the entire world to the ground just to keep her perfectly warm. Did you love this unbelievable true story of vengeance, loyalty, and sweet romance? Karma always collects its debts, especially when the mafia is involved. If you want to hear more jaw-dropping real-life drama stories where the underdogs win and the mean girls get exactly what they deserve, you know what to do. Hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel right now. So you never miss out on the tea. Stay sweet, everyone.